Hello, hello, everybody. I have a special guest who is backstage. Very excited to bring her on in about 40 seconds. Hello, Hannah. Please say hello to our community manager who is here. And my VIP member is in the house. How are you guys? Jay, Satya, Kathy, Asia, you are here. Thank you for coming. Lots of diversity ladies in the house today. If you all can hear me, please say yes, just to make sure that we're on the same page. And yes, this is Halloween music. Hello, hello, surprise! We have Stephanie who's joining with me today. But if you are watching for the very first time, my name is Holly Lee. I am a career coach, former ex-Amazonian, Google, and Facebook. I live stream twice a week, every single week. But enough about me because Stephanie have a hard stop in a little bit, and I wanted to make sure that we are maximizing her time with us. There you go. That's much better. That's much. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here. A little backstory for all of you new members. Stephanie, I've actually kind of supported her work about 10 years ago at Amazon Kindle. She was the only female leader that we have known of at the time. She's been at Amazon for at least 12 years. She led all of devices and operation for program managers as well as TPM. That is why I'm so excited to have her here today. And currently, she is an executive leader for LinkedIn, managing technical program managers. I hear you all very loud and very clear that you want me to bring on leadership or hiring managers here to help you crack all of those behavioral questions. Don't be scared of the bar racer because guess what, guys? Stephanie has been a leadership bar racer for a very, very long time, and we are here to support you. Stephanie, thank you so much. I would love it if you can give us a brief introductions of your journey and your story. A bio would be great.
Holly, thanks so much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be talking with you all today and just sharing about my story as a leader and also as a hiring manager when I've been building out teams. So, I grew up in a small town in the suburbs of Baltimore. My parents are actually immigrants from Taiwan. The type of small town I grew up in, it was the kind where there were less than five Asian kids in my elementary school,
My
and one of them
gosh.
was actually my sister. So it was very, very small. Um, and essentially, after growing up there, I went to college at the University of Pennsylvania. I always knew that I wanted to work at the intersection of business and technology. I was the kind of kid that did, job shadowing and future business leaders in high school. And when I went to college, I graduated with degrees in business from the Wharton School and with an engineering degree from the University of Pennsylvania as well. After working as an investment banker for a few years, I decided to make a career change out of client services and went back to school. And I went to MIT and got an MBA and a master's in engineering. When I was there, I ended up getting recruited out of school to work for Amazon. And I worked for Amazon for about 12 years doing all these different jobs, including times of growth in Amazon operations, Amazon retail, and in Amazon devices. I left Amazon and went to Uber and worked in community operations, leading customer success and quality systems. And then I made a move working at Intuit, leading the cloud migration to Amazon Web Services and actually also maturing the cybersecurity function there. I'm currently working at LinkedIn, leading consumer technical program management. The team of TPMs that I lead drive delivery and operations across about 1,000 engineers in LinkedIn on the things basically that you see when you're using the LinkedIn app every day. I'm married and I have two elementary school age kids, and I live in the Bay Area.
And you were at Amazon for 12 years during that time with two kids?
Yeah, well, yes, I had both my kids actually when I was at Amazon. So,
Wow. That's amazing. I probably shouldn't be complaining at the time I was trying to have one kid. Thank you for the intro. I know that a lot of people wanting to know this question, Stephanie, and that is what made you stick around for over a decade? I tell a lot of my members, I call them, or even clients, that 1 year at Amazon is relevant to at least 4 years. There's actually a lot of articles talking about that. So 12 years, guys, do the math, 12 times 4. Okay. You've been there for many, many decades. Why did you stick around for that long? And we would love to hear more of your move, your career growth.
Sure.
What was that
One
like?
of the I'd love to just share about that. It's interesting because now I think there's kind of this buzzword where people are talking a lot about sponsorship. And I felt like I had that at Amazon, and that's a very big part of kind of making a decision to stay as well. So I think let me talk about that and also talk about, I mean, the other part, which is just a lot of hard work. I think we used to call it dog years. So we used to think it was about 7 years equivalent. When I joined Amazon, there were less than 5,000 people there. And I don't think I even realized how much it grew till the time I was leaving. But it was actually a time of quite amazing growth. So Jeff Wilke, who used to be the CEO of Amazon Retail, was actually a graduate of MIT in the same degree program where I got my degrees.
Oh,
And
wow.
it was a pretty unusual program, selective. There were only about 50 people, 50 students a year that were in that program. And Jeff Wilke had become a leader at Amazon, and he was actually running the fulfillment center and operations function. And he basically was out trying to look for a certain skill set. And it turned out that at our school, like they were training us in that skill set. So they came to interview people as part of campus recruiting. And then we went on site to Amazon. And after a full day of meeting, probably like 8 people, I probably had about 8 people interview me that day. I was so energized. They asked all these questions about problems they were trying to solve around picking or different pieces of software. And I just brainstormed and went through these case studies with them. And I really enjoyed it. And at the end of that day, I decided, I got an offer and decided to join Amazon. And I went and I worked in a warehouse, which is pretty unusual actually to go from an MBA to working in a warehouse. But I worked in Newcastle, Delaware. It was their first warehouse outside of Seattle. And I managed people actually who were like hourly workers. And I basically had like the experience at Amazon. I think part of what makes it different from other businesses is that the amount of responsibility that you're given from day one and what you have to do is like it's phenomenal. So I walked in with my MBA and 2 years of work experience under my belt. And my boss at that time, who was Dave Clark, he said, hey, hundreds of people are going to start coming through the door in 1 month, and your job is to figure out what to do with them and how to make them productive. And like that basically just started this rolling of my career of like developing a program, making sure it was successful and it worked, for getting these people onboarded and productive. And I I did that for one peak. So at Amazon and retail, you kind of measure your time in peaks. And at the end of that peak, I went to an expanded role leading an inbound team. And then I did that for a year. And then at the end of that peak, I went to an expanded role in a network of facilities. And then at the end of
My
that, I went
goodness,
to lead.
you literally did everything in operation.
Yeah, and I led a fulfillment center for Amazon, like a 1 million square foot warehouse in the middle of Pennsylvania. With only like 2.5 years of working, 3 years of working there. So the amount of responsibility and growth is part of where all of that, what makes it so compelling. For personal reasons, I decided to move to California. And the thing about Amazon at that time, I don't know if anyone remembers this, was that they had tax issues in California.
Yep.
So it was pretty hard, but Amazon was really great about finding me an opportunity to work in one of their retail businesses. And then I went from there into Kindle. And I think it's that same story of having all this growth. So I joined Kindle, the Amazon devices team. Kindle was like the hot product that year. It was out of stock. I joined after the first Kindle launched and basically was at part of the business for about 6 years of Kindle, 3 years doing all types of operations, logistics, customer success, and then 3 years doing supply chain and devices. And during that time, like growing so much in terms of the domain I was learning, scope of responsibility. So I went from being an individual contributor to leading a team of 40 people. Went on maternity leave, came back, took on a chief of staff role, and then also took on a role leading like a enterprise business system team. So that was about a 70-person team. So like just having a lot of phenomenal growth there. And that really came both from the hard work of, working a lot, delivering the things that were asked, but also of sponsorship. So I talked about how Jeff Wilke was this graduate of the program. when I joined, I was what was called a Pathways Operations Program Manager, and they used to basically go through and talk about what are the opportunities because their business was growing so fast. They really needed leaders who were going to deliver to take the next phase and the next stage. And so those opportunities were like often laid before me to be able to choose the next path and kind of the next challenge to go on. And it was one of the things that you knew if you did well at that challenge or that success, you would grow and get increased scope. Like, and that's kind of the pattern that kept happening to me and really kept me there for 12 years of, increased scope as well.
Wow. You know, that was the first time that I've heard your story. Let me put myself back. I removed myself completely, by the way. No one wants to see me. They just want to hear you. Sometimes it can be distracting. I mean, I have crossed path with Stephanie for a long time. I was in consumer as well when you mentioned Jeff Wilke. I'm not kidding you. I literally put a video out 3 days ago and talk about my most innovative thing I've ever done was convincing Jeff Wilke to give me a lot of money for international expansion. So I'm sorry, guys. This is not this is not intended about Jeff Wilke 2 videos at the time. It's funny, but that was the first time I've heard your story. That's amazing. Thank you. Wow,
Thank you.
I was busy listening to it. I forgot to hit the button. We're still recording. Great, thank you. Um, what about I've seen a lot of successes. I'm pretty sure you have a lot of employees that looked up with you, especially diversity women there. It's funny because when I reach out to Stephanie and ask her to let me interview her for my channel, she was surprised about that. I'm like, yeah, we all talk about you because during that time, the story that she just gave us, when you're thinking about during that time in devices and operation or in any tech company, if even if you do a search on LinkedIn, I challenge you guys. If you look at female leaders, there's like one. I did it. I did that. I was a new recruiter. I was a new senior recruiter at the time. And I was just kind of curious to see what my stakeholders or hiring leaders look like. And I found one. So thank you. Um, with that in mind, what is your biggest challenge as a woman leader and how did you overcome that? I'm
Yeah,
pretty
that's a
sure you
great
have
question.
plenty in 12 years.
I do. I kind of have a life challenge and then maybe a work challenge. So I'll share about the life challenge. I think like pretty clearly, and maybe you can tell, I'm a pretty ambitious person. So there's a lot I
No,
want
we
to do
can't
with
tell at
my
all.
life. And it's pretty clear. I think I'm pretty motivated and I'm pretty driven. Before my kids, it was pretty easy because I worked. I worked a lot. I remember when we were getting married, my husband said something like, "I'm bringing music and chocolate to our wedding. Like, what are you bringing?" And I was like, I had nothing because all I did was work. And I didn't have any hobbies, like I just was really into work and thinking about how to solve the problems that I was facing at work. So it was pretty easy before kids because I didn't have that much to juggle. I traveled all around the globe, like I was traveling about 50% for my job. And then I had my first baby. And so one of the challenges for me was really deciding who did I want to be? Who do I want to be in life? Like part of that as in my role as a wife, in my role as a mother, in my role like in my career, and even given all the ambitions that I have. So I looked around and I didn't see anyone like me on my boss's staff. I didn't see anyone like me on most of my most staffs, right? Because I looked around and no one looked like me. On my boss's staff, I was the only Asian woman. I was the only person that had young children. My coworkers would tell me that they would, go home at like 7 p.m. at night and they would eat dinner by themselves with a plate of food their wife had left in the microwave. And like at some point, I just had to think like, what am I going to be? What kind of mother do I want to be? What kind of worker do I want to be? What kind of person do I want to be? And it was very difficult to navigate, both between things like, nursing and not wanting to pump or travel that much because of having to manage all of that. And then even things like how much travel was I going to do because I was working a job in operations. And I also think people did not know exactly what to do with me, like how to manage me now that I had a baby, like how to still give me challenge. I don't think they realized that like I'm working to work, like to be challenged, to be able to accomplish and achieve things. So one of my bosses, I think his big thing was like, I'm just going to leave her alone. I'll just like park her off to the side and give her some sort of task or job, and maybe that'll make her happy. And it was like very, very dissatisfying actually at work. But I did not have maybe it's the maturity or the courage to just bring it up and to just say, hey, like this isn't what I want. What I want is X instead. Like I want a very fulfilling job, but I also want to be able to shut down and have my family time. And so like at some point, I think over the next like 5-ish years, like I just spent a lot of time trying different things to figure out what worked. I went to Uber and I did another like super huge operational big job, and it was terrible. Like at one point, my husband, I was commuting to the city. At one point, my husband said to me, he said, I really need you to come home. Like I can't have you working super late at night. Like you need to come home. And like after that point, I had to take a 5 o'clock train to
Was
go
that the time
home.
that you already had 2 kids?
Yes, yes.
Wow, and he stuck with you
And
through those years.
it's well, and beforehand, I remember having this whole conversation about like, I want to have this big career, but that means you have to do more or we have to outsource it. Like we have to figure out what we're going to do. And one of those decisions, like you're as a woman, you're like navigating all these things in your life. So you're trying to figure out how do you handle the dreams you want, your biological clock ticking, like your spouse or partner, and like what kind of mom do you want to be? And sort of this decision that we don't want to just outsource like raising of our children, right? Like we want to be there. So my husband had said, "Yes, I can do this." And then it was like it was just so hard. So
Yeah.
it it was
How
really
how
really
old were your
difficult.
kids back then?
My youngest was she was like so young. Like I feel like I'm
She
gonna
she
cry.
doesn't even wanna share
Like
with us, that's how young it is. Wow.
she was 2. And I remember, and then my older one was 5, and I remember, I'm just gonna say, I might cry saying this. So there was this trip to Hawaii that, like, my in-laws said, they're super generous. So they said, we'd love to bring you to Hawaii. And, I love my in-laws, but I was like, I really don't want to go. This was like a second trip. And this was
How many
before I started the
people in
job
here
at
love
Uber.
their in-laws? Like, let me put my hands up. I'm just kidding.
So I remember though I was working pretty intense, and I said to my husband, "Hey, why don't you just go with the kids? I'll go to the Philippines because I had to do work in the Philippines. So I
Oh,
went to Philippines
no. It's all
for
work,
work.
no family.
Like my husband went to Hawaii with the kids, and that was also like when my daughter had her birthday. And at some
Oh,
point, like you kind of look at your job and you're just thinking like, I don't think this is the life I want. And so that whole thing as a woman of figuring out what is the life I want and who do I want to be and making a choice that I want to be number one, like geographically, I'm living in the Silicon Valley. I want to be home for dinner. Like those types of things, like really led a lot of different choices for me to make some career shifts into things that were part of the life that I wanted. And that takes like, I have the luxury of choice. So not everyone has that. And also just in a supportive, I could choose if I want to outsource all of my childcare or all of my food or something like that. But I think there are choices that we made around like having a marriage that's worth fighting for, like having kids that I'm proud of that I raised myself, like being home for dinner, like just these things that maybe didn't match every job that I was in, and so I had to keep making shifts to that. And then along with that, having work that I felt like I am contributing, I'm having the type of impact that I feel like I was made for. And so like that's just as a mom, like trying to figure out how to navigate those conversations, how to even figure out what I want and how to keep tweaking it because I felt like I took these kind of wild swings towards more, and as I learned more, I was able to apply those lessons and they got a little bit
you
less
realize
wild
after
over
this
time.
live stream, everybody's gonna want to work for you, right? It's gonna happen. Just so you know, let me know if you want me to put your LinkedIn in here because literally everyone. I have close to about almost 25,000 subscriber. I would say at least 1% of them are going to reach out to you to work for you. Just an FYI, what you just said. Wow,
Thanks, Holly.
that was an amazing story. Well, now I understand why you can't be my mentor during our time at Kindle. My goodness. Wow. And you were traveling. I remember you traveling a lot and having a lot on your plate as well. Um, wow. I wish we would have connected years and years ago. I probably would have I've thought, Stephanie, I know that this is our actual first time hanging out, having conversation outside of this is what I want from you. Can you bar raise it for? It was just so crazy at the Amazon environment, crazy in a good way at the time because what you just said resonate everything about me. At the time, I was single because I couldn't keep a single relationship. All I did was work and I loved it. I loved it. We'd be at dinner on a date. I would say, "I'm sorry. I know we just met. I have to really take this call. I have to close this candidate. It's a principle for my stakeholder. We have goods to launch. Christmas is around the corner." So I would just take the phone and walk away. Um, but I've always thought that I was highly ambitious and I would do anything. My job is my life. I'm married to Amazon at the time, or whatever. Every single employer I've ever worked with, I'm married to that employer. You are even crazier than I am. Wow, I cannot refuse a job to on family vacation, but yes. Okay, Stephanie, back to Stephanie. What are, well, first, I must share with you that 100% of my diverse clients lack confidence. When I say 100%, I'm talking about men and women, not just women. Um, when 2020 was announced, I had a lot of private executive clients. We're talking about director level at all these big companies, including Microsoft, right? I don't know why Microsoft and LinkedIn's not part of the same company. They're growing. How would you advise all of those professional who are interested in working for like an Amazon or a LinkedIn to find the courage in just working hard and doing it? I think one of the biggest reason I know this, I don't think about it because I've actually physically worked with hundreds of them, right? They fail their interview because they don't believe in themselves and they don't work. When you don't believe in yourself, professionals, you're not willing to work hard enough to do XYZ to get there. And everyone is so fixated on what level is this is. I'm a VP, I want to be a VP at Amazon. It's not going to happen. Okay, you know, oh my God, I'm interviewing with a director, BR. I'm like, how did you know that's a BR? Because I asked every interview. I'm like, no, no. We'll talk about the BR in a second. So, what are your biggest tip with those who are just lack of confidence, who doesn't believe that they could never get hired at these big fame companies because they come from no name or aerospace or healthcare even?
Mhm. So I think it's a good question. First of all, there has never been a better time to be out looking for a job. So I don't know how much you've been reading or looking at things,
I
but
love this
companies are
girl. Do
out
you love
there.
this girl? Please give her a thumbs up in the chat. By the way, we
Companies
did
are
not rehearse. She just says every single thing so perfectly.
companies are out there and they are looking for people. And not only that, I mean, you talked about how you're not only talking about women, but I did want to just note that there's never been a time where people were just so in tune with this concept around diversity, around either gender or race or things like that. Like this is the time. So like if you aren't sure, this has been a great time to look for a new role, to find a job. The job market is hot. And it's also a great time to distinguish yourself based on skills, not just on your background. This is actually like a big LinkedIn thing, um, talking about kind of the move to skills and how people are more willing to look at your whole package of your skills and experiences versus just your credibility of what your brand name companies were or things like that. So, and I think that's an important thing to note. So, one of the things when you talk about people lacking confidence, I think it's important to make sure that if you don't take a risk, like you won't be able to get the thing that you want. And maybe one of the kind of patterns that my husband taught me, he's a therapist, is just thinking through like what's the worst that can happen. Like if you try for this interview, the worst that's going to happen is really getting a no, right? And getting a turn down. And no one actually makes it through life without failing sometimes. If you're not failing at all, it means you're not taking a risk. Even, you'll read these stories of famous CEOs or whatever, and they all have their challenges and setbacks. We only typically see other people's successes. We don't always hear about their failures. So a few tips for companies for thinking about companies. So first of all, do your research. You have to think about what the company is like. A place like Amazon, they are really hiring for these like lean forward, kind of aggressive people who are gonna like solve and tackle problems. They're looking for problem solvers. They have their set of leadership principles that are totally published. Um, you want to look and see, like, is this the kind of environment that you'd thrive in? Because if it's not, even preparing for an interview, like you might get into the interview and then find out that you're very, very unhappy in that type of work environment. Another example, like at LinkedIn, we're super like the culture at LinkedIn is incredibly special. And so one of the things we look for is this idea of collaboration. A lot of, you know, how you work well with other people. So when we interview, we actually look for some pieces around this collaboration. And maybe we look and we'll say, oh, did that person answer I all the time or we? Did they expand and extend the things that they were doing? How did they partner with other people? Amazon, in contrast, sometimes you're kind of like, well, what did that person do? And you're looking for the I. If someone answers all the time with a we, the question becomes, well, what exactly did you do? If you're the bar raiser, you can ask, what exactly did you do? So do your research, figure out what the company is like, find a company that you think is going to be a great fit for you. Second, if you think that company culture values match, go figure out the place in the company that's going to be the best for you. So the function, department, or maybe the product area. Amazon has like thousands and thousands of jobs out there. LinkedIn has thousands of jobs posted. So if you just willy-nilly apply, like that's a decent way. But if you find something maybe where your skills and experience match, either the function or the product area or the department, you're going to be a lot more attractive to candidates who are looking for you. For example, in my team, I look for people who have done consumer product stuff. I also look for people who know a little bit about application infrastructure and developer productivity because I have a small part of my team that does that. And I look for people who have a background in trust and safety. So when looking, you want to make sure that you're thinking about where your resume best fits in to that. And then third, think about who you know so you can find out more about the place and network your way into an interview. LinkedIn published a gender study in 2019. Again, I know you talked about this not only being about gender, but they found out that women were actually less likely to ask for referrals by 26%. So,
Wow.
one of the things that this says is like, maybe we're not utilizing all of the tools and skills available to us in order to actually like get in the best place. So that's like to get yourself away to an interview. Once you get an interview, it is all about preparation. Um, what do I mean by that? There's like, remember that recruiters get measured on conversion rate. Like a recruiter who
Amen.
doesn't get you can who doesn't get a hire, like at some point you don't, that's not a good recruiter. You're looking for recruiters who are going to convert your candidates. You're looking for recruiters who are going to bring the right candidate in. And so recruiters now are super motivated to prepare you well. If they have not prepared you well, you can just casually ask them for it. But examples like Facebook, they'll basically, the recruiter will go through and be like, you're going to meet with this person. Here's who they are. They're going to ask you this question. They're looking for this quality in you. So like that is the time where you need to take your copious notes, like make sure you recorded everything they say, and then go practice and prepare questions that show that skill that they want. So that's, you know, the preparation, preparation, preparation. So those are the things I would say help to build confidence. So going through that first, like do your research, find the right company. Um, Within that company, make sure that you know where the place is that's going to be the best for you. Network your way into an interview by meeting with people. And then for your interview, preparation, preparation, preparation. Like do your practice. And I feel like that is a fail-safe formula. Like even if you might need other people to help you with figuring out how do I prepare? What's this next way? But that there's, companies like yours, Holly, that does that. Um, but I think this piece of making sure that you are confident that you can do it. If worse comes to worse, like right before your interview, there was this TED talk on stance, where you do your triangle pose and you're like, I can do it. And I feel like that's like the last thing you need to just psych yourself up so that you can actually go and land that job offer.
Wow, I was intrigued. I feel like I don't want to ask you questions. I just want to hear you talk about it more. Okay, let's talk about everybody's dying question is the bar racer, okay? So during your time, what level do you bar race for, Stephanie?
People bar raise for one level below them, and I think at their level. They bar
Or
raise
at the
at their
level.
level
Yep.
and any level below. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
So
bar
I was
raise directors, anyone up to director
Yeah,
is
I
what
was
I
going
would
to
bar
say,
raise for.
so I know. No wonder you keep on declining my level sixes. I get it now. Now I get it. I was new back then. I'm just kidding. So you bar raised for 7 and 8 during that time.
Mhm.
And I know I've done this many times for all you amazing people out there who are anxiously for your interview. This is not just Amazon. This is for any company because I was supporting two pre-IPO startup prior to the pandemic. I too was affected, and there's a lot of ex-Amazonian going to other company and they turn it into rather than a BR program. Some companies, no name, call it the Ranger program. It drives me crazy. You never try to duplicate another company's work, and you need to create your own culture and environment. A lot of startups, or they're no longer startup, are doing that. Okay, so with that in mind, how important is the BR interview?
The bar raiser interview is incredibly important. It is not the only thing that is important, but it is incredibly important because the bar raiser is the person that basically wears the hat that says, I'm not convinced. So you have your manager, your hiring manager's like probably desperate to get someone in because they're doing the work or they're covering it. And you have a panel of people that are typically there to assess for different Amazon leadership principles. The bar raiser is basically responsible for saying, I want to see data points that convince me that this person is a fit. And I think it's still this way now, Holly, but it is, they look for one dimension along which the person is exceptional and kind of saying that the person's greater than 50% of the people doing the job role at that current moment. That's what it was when I was bar raising. And I bar raised for about 4 or 5 years there at least, mostly on the Amazon devices side.
Now, should one prep differently with the bar racer and other interviewers? Because a lot of people are extremely frantic when it comes to the BR. For instance, all of my customer, even YouTube members, are asking me, Holly, how do I know who the BR is? And I will tell them that it's irrelevant who the BR is. It's more relevant to be prepared because data speaks for itself, and it's not just Amazon's. I'm pretty sure LinkedIn is a highly driven data organization, right? It's the biggest CRM platform in the world, the biggest portal. So I think it's important to have data and comparison of data X and Y and how you're able to deliver your ROI or your AKA business impact with all of the interview, even at a peer-to-peer level interview, especially when you're level 7 and 8, you're expected to come with those numbers. What would you tell those leaders who are all asking me of who do I know who the BR is? I'm really scared of the BR. Should I prep differently for the BR?
I totally agree with you that it doesn't matter who the bar raiser is. Basically, you should prep for the interview the way that you would prep for any interview. But I think for an Amazon interview, you need to remember that Amazon is pretty different. Their values are pretty different from other companies out there. And so the things that they drill into or care about or how you answer them matters a lot. You can't just do the same as other places. They are very focused on what were the business results, what was the activity you did. So like my suggestion for people preparing for that is, so there's these leadership principles, they're published. Look at your resume, look at your background, try to come up with 10 super solid examples that show I that show results that you delivered, where you leaned in, you let it, you made something happen, and there's measurable results. You take those 10 solid examples, see if you can map them to these different leadership principles, and like use them as your pool so that when you're in your interview, you can draw upon them. And when you're answering, you always use the STAR method, right? STAR method of interviewing. Situation.
I'm sorry, I had to do that.
That was great. The STAR method, I feel like you know what I'm talking about. Like, so situation, task, action, and result. What was the situation? What was the task that you did? No, I feel like maybe I got the T wrong.
No,
What
no,
was the
you're right.
action you took?
You still have
Oh,
it.
what was
I
what
know
was
you're
the
pretty high
task?
level right now. You still got it.
What was the task at hand? What was the action that you took, and what was the result? And like regardless of Amazon or not, most places train in this behavioral interviewing technique, which says, hey, if you the best predictor of future results is the fact that you've done this in the past. So basically, you take some solid examples and you try and make them fit this star pattern. And like for Amazon, you should poke holes at it a little and make sure that it has, results, that some of them are numerical, that you had a role. One of the things that I see when I'm looking at candidates is that a lot of times people will say, I owned this or I was responsible for X. Like I see that on their resume all the time. At Amazon, when you're looking at resumes, you don't care what someone owned, you care what they did. And so if
Amen. Yep.
someone, drove costs down by 50%, like improved your cycle time by 20%, like implemented something or the other that didn't exist before, like these are the type of things that Amazon is looking for in their candidates. And so preparation is about making sure you understand those principles and that you actually have work results that tie and demonstrate those things as well.
Oh, oops, sorry. I was busy and I wasn't paying attention, as you can see. Can you guys feel Stephanie's insist on higher standard? Can you feel it? Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that. I'm going to X out on here. I know that some of the folks are asking you questions. I know you have a hard start. Let me be okay. We have about 25 minutes, so I'm just being very cautious of your time. Hang on one second. Everybody who is here, you know how this works. I will remake this video and make sure that the important content, I know you don't want to hear from me, you want to hear from her. I will make sure to polish it up for you guys. But for now, I wanted to look at some of the Q&A while she's still with us, okay? Let's see. Let's see. I am going to move our name oops, sorry guys. Sorry, Stephanie. I don't know if you can see this. So when we put caption on here, people are not I don't think they care about me, but I'm gonna go ahead and make it extremely. Yeah, they don't care. I'm gonna put it right here. Okay, there you go. Actually, in fact, I'm sorry, guys. I changed my mind. Uh, you know what? I'm sorry. One last time. Promise I'm not touching anything else. All right. Hello, DJ VIP members in the house. Hello. Thank you for your patience, Aisha. Just upgraded membership. Thank you for becoming a member. I have membership, Stephanie, membership meaning that I run 2 live stream and I will answer all of their career growth related leadership interview tip questions twice a week. I am a full-time content creator and I literally you're I feel like you are my older sister, twin almost, because literally everything you just said when you say star, I didn't wear the sweater, it says eat sleep star. That's how passionate I am of the STAR method. Being a trainer for making great hiring decision at the time, all we teach and preach is peeling layers of onions. So they have been forewarned that every single communication and delivering their messages is using the STAR Foundation. Even at companies like LinkedIn, I'm sure, because it really helped the leaders keep concise. Hannah, my community manager, says, and this is why I have to remove our name tag right here. Holly's live interview coaching. Very excited for today's interview. Yes, of course. I told my members that I'm very nervous because you are here. Taha, hello, Taha. I saw some question for you. I can't wait for you to answer this. Chow, hello, Chow. Excited to be here. We are excited to answer your question as well. Constant, I passed the first interview with Amazon. I also have, by the way, Stephanie, I tried talking about Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple. They really care about Amazon. You will find about 100% of the question is on Amazon. Even if I start
Sure.
talking about something else, still Amazon. I passed the interview. I also made a second round. I'm just waiting to hear from the recruiter to send me time and date. Remember, the big part is if you miss what Stephanie just said, scroll back up 15 minutes. It is to the recruiter's best interest because they're doing measure based on the number of offer accept, not even interview, not even hire, offer accept. That's how recruiters get to keep their job. So if I were you and I came from the recruiting background for 20 plus years, learn how to manage your recruiter with good intent. They're really busy right now. So every 2 business days, you should be following up with the recruiter. They haven't forgotten about you, but your time, I feel like you and I are still working for Amazon. When you work for Amazon, it may feel like in reality, it's about a week or 2. To the recruiter, it felt like an hour. Okay. That's what I mean. It's good to always try to follow up with them and don't be afraid. What's going to go wrong? You're already what is called the hot pipeline for the candidate. You're moving forward to the next phase. So grateful for you, Rita says. I don't know if you noticed, Stephanie, there's a lot of ladies in the house for you today. It's very
That is
heavy.
so great. It
Thank you
is
for making
awesome.
this happen for us. She sounds amazing. I didn't
You
do
know,
anything. I just sent her an invite. What program did Stephanie attended at MIT, and how does she feel it will help her at Amazon? Oh, wow, that's a good question.
okay, that's a good question. I attended the Leaders for Global Operations program. It's an MBA and a master's in engineering. The biggest thing, so I learned a ton. Obviously, it's MIT, so that's very, great, a fantastic education. Um, the biggest thing, actually, though, that I think it did was actually open my way to join Amazon when it was pretty small, like in 2003. So I think not many people um, have opportunities like that. But I would also say it's this piece where I was in the right place at the right time. Like someone was around looking for my skills and knew where to find them, and that's how they found me. They were looking for anyone with skills that were what I had. And so I think that helped me a ton at Amazon because the type of skills that I learned, analytical skills, also just jumping in. Like at Amazon, in the early days, it's like less than about 5,000 people when I first joined. We had to solve problems every day. Like it wasn't like super well-oiled machine that you think about now with everyone writing their papers. There were problems coming up. You had to figure out like what to do, put together a pretty well thought out solution, and then just go and implement it as best you could. And so I think that thinking on my feet like that, being able to like spring to action, that's like one of the really valuable skills I learned and totally applied at Amazon as well.
I accidentally hit a button. I'm sorry, guys. That's why I'm looking to. I promise you, I'm very interested in what Stephanie has to say. There you go. I shut it off. That's a life of live streaming. You can't control what's going on around you. Does that answer your questions, Fawaz? Um, a lot of the folks, even if they have industry experience, they went back to get their master's degree, Stephanie, and they feel like they need to go back to get their master's degree just so they can work at Amazon. And I try to tell them that it's not about your certification or your academic background. It's all about what you're bringing on the table. It's about your aptitude and your appetite. If you can't tell, but my personality, I am extreme A type in the workplace. But when I'm outside at work, I would rather just not talk to anybody, and Stephanie is probably 10 notch above me, whatever I did. So it takes a certain aptitude for any employer, not just Amazon, to evaluate not just really what school you came out of and what have you done. It's what have you done that's relevant, and how do you make them relevant on the way you deliver your answers. I hope
I
that
think
makes
that's a
sense.
great I think that's a great point too. I didn't think about this as maybe people are wondering if they have to get their master's. I talked about this earlier, and I think it's still true now, which is the job market is very hot. There has never been a better time to go and look for opportunities. And I think that that is still true. One of the things to remember about Amazon is what they're looking for isn't just, a credential or on your resume, right? That's one portion. But what they're looking for is, do you have relevant experience for the thing that they are trying to do? Do you operate in a way that matches with these leadership principles that they care about? And like, can you move the way that they need you to, basically? At Amazon,
Hmm.
Amazon is not a easy culture. Like, it is pretty hard when people go through this whole round of all this stuff to get in the door there. But the worst thing is if you get in and then you like flame out in 3 months. You need to they're trying to do that to make sure that you're going to be the most successful you can be in an environment that's moving pretty rapidly. So some of the things that you're trying to look for or trying to do is demonstrate that you can be the solve the problems that they want you to solve. And I think that that's also like you can sometimes read the job description and figure out what kind of problems are coming up, and therefore how would you solve those problems. And sometimes you get not just these um, culture interviews, but you get case studies where people are trying to see how you think. How do you respond? What if someone pokes at you? What if they give you no new data? How do you handle that? Because I think it like the culture at Amazon is such that people will do that. Someone will come up to you, have a challenge of data. They don't always give you a lot of positive affirmation. I think I worked there for like 2 years. No one said thank you ever to like things I did.
I don't
So
think anyone has
it's
ever
it's
thanked me
just
for anything at Amazon, ever.
so and they're looking for people who are fine. Like that they don't need all those things, right? So I think it's important to think about how you might be able to actually demonstrate your ability to lean forward, solve problems, and like move at the pace that they need. Um, that's what people are looking for more than whether you have the master's. Separate note, there's some research that says women might feel more comfortable having these degrees because they feel like that
Hmm.
builds the confidence in them to
Yep.
apply. And I think that's like a stat that we should know, but also hold loosely. Meaning, like same, I'll refer back to this gender study that LinkedIn did in 2019. They actually found that women are 16% less likely to apply for jobs that
I'm
they've
going
been
to
looking
dig
at,
for
let's
that
say on
URL
LinkedIn.
and share it with them. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. And like they apply to 20% fewer jobs, but at the same time, that basically they're more likely to be hired because they're more like they've been more selective in that too. So I think it has kind of two counterpoints. One is the just try part, right? Like just try, just apply. But the other part is like you don't need to make sure you checked every box before you apply, before you make that try. And every experience you have, like you're going to have a learning from that as well that you can apply to the next time or the next place as well. So I think that's an important part
Everyone,
to
if
bring
you
up.
haven't checked out my previous two leadership interviewed, I did a product leader from Amazon and an LA engineering leader. And then you compare that to Stephanie's energy level and the highly ambitious appetite. Let's call it appetite and hunger. You can see the difference. Yeah. You're, I mean, I've interviewed quite a few leaders before, but your passion is still there. A lot of leaders who's been around for about 20 plus years or so, they come to me and they all want to retire. And I get from one thing company to another. But for you, it's very obvious that you still wanted to build things and save the world for LinkedIn. They're lucky to have you. Um,
It's interesting. I feel like I need to just say something because
are you ready to retire?
no,
I
I'm
won't tell
not. But I
LinkedIn.
need to say, like, we talked a lot about confidence in this, and I feel like you're seeing me now and I'm like alive, but like I probably lost my confidence for like at least 5 years there, where it
Yeah.
was like my sponsorship, like my sponsorship changed because some new people came. I tried some different things and they were terrible. I was trying to navigate my personal life and my work life. And like I think I came to part of coming to LinkedIn was like I wanted to find a place that's about mission. I love professional development, Holly. Like, I love this. People are trying to find these things in their career, and I just believe like there's something you're made for. And so, if you can find that thing where you're like in the sweet spot, you're going to feel more alive and more excited about it and like want to come to work, want to do better work, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I just felt like this is a place to make my impact. But like I went through a big like rocky confidence journey and like I had to go to therapy for it. Like all these things happened and then finally one day I was like I came back. Like
Meanwhile,
and I
everybody
think
is
that's a
kind of
piece
scared
too.
of you in that environment.
It may be true.
I think that you feel that way because you really care about the work that you do, and at Amazon, everyone is just so smart. Everyone is racing to the finish line. There was a joke. I don't know if you heard about this joke. Being in Seattle, where you're running so fast, you hit a wall because you can't see that it's a glass. You fall down, you get up, and you keep on running. I think that is why. Even like at Amazon, I never once felt that I had confidence. It appeared that I have a lot of confidence, but I never did.
Mm,
Because I think that's okay. You just care very much in doing a great job, and even if you do, you're still not satisfied.
mhm.
I get it.
Right.
There's an interesting talking about Amazon. There's an interesting question for you. What was your? Oh, what happened here? Sorry. Uh, what happened? What was your driving force to leave Amazon and move to Uber?
Oh, that's a good question. So I had a fantastic opportunity. The person leading Uber actually, he was someone I knew from Amazon. And I will tell you, I am a mission-driven person. This is pretty small. There's about 5% of the world that falls into this thing where belief is like one of their big um, strengths as part of like Clifton's Strengths Finders. I don't know if you guys have heard of Strengths Finders,
Hmm.
but it's a book by, I think, Tom Rath. So about 6% of people actually fall into this category like me that have belief. So I really, really need to believe in something to do it. And I went and I rode Uber and it was like changing the world. It was changing people's lives. I would meet these um, Uber drivers. They would tell me all these stories about how they got back their life. They were able to do these other things, how it was so amazing. And so I had this awesome opportunity to go and work with someone I knew at Uber. And I went and I did it. It was like, I think I took a risk, right? I said I'm either going to stay at Amazon for my whole career, maybe move to Seattle one day, even
I
though
was
I already
surprised that
decided
you
I want
left
to live in
Amazon
Silicon
after 12
Valley.
years.
Yeah, but it was this piece also of really I started to get really curious about what life was like outside of Amazon because it kind of like I worked at an investment bank, I worked at a startup before Amazon, but I had been there through so much, and you had all these other companies growing and doing things. So when I had that opportunity, I was like, I think this is it. Like I'm gonna go for this because it was Uber. And then all that other stuff happened. Like I missed my daughter's birthday. I went back to traveling 50%, and I was
I
like, I
don't think it's
have
a
to
company you
leave.
choose. I think it's just who you are. You're just really ambitious. You want to solve problems immediately. You want to get things done. That's very Amazonian, by the way. Which led me to the next question. By the way, we're 10 minutes to 1:30. I'm looking at the time again, so I have to let her go in about 5 6 minutes, guys, because she has a meeting to go to. I'm gonna take the last couple questions. Okay, this is very good from Hannah. Um, Hannah, you're all the way up there. I'm gonna pull you. Hannah says, "What do you mean by Jeff Wilke looking for people with certain skill set? What were the specific skill set?"
Oh, okay. I mean, this was like a story at the time, right? So this is like 2003. Wilkie, he had joined Amazon and he was leading it. And when you're hiring, you're like leading warehousing. So they would hire these people with all these warehousing skills. So they knew how to, be shift managers. Like I was a shift manager. What he was looking for was people who had like system dynamics thinking, who could understand how the technology could be optimized to work in a warehouse setting. So when I joined, like I was, we talked about being Asian American very little. I will tell you that during this time there was like a Thailand flood or something, and someone asked me about it, and I said my family is from Taiwan, and they were like, well, that's why I'm asking you about this Thailand flood. So I joined in this huge environment where it was so different from anything I had been in, but the skill that I brought was I understood what levers do we need to pull in technology to make this thing work better, um, and produce like really great results. So that was kind of the skill set that he was looking for, was people who could do this system optimization. In the warehouse at the time, like product would be stuck at different bottlenecks. So you'd have, picking and then boxing, which they picking and sortation, which you would put it together, and then shipping, where you would hand
That's
box it and
warehouse
put a label on
101.
it.
That's a fulfillment center
Where
tip that she just gave all of us.
and in those stages, like if you have a smooth system, the amount of cost you can reduce, how things flow, is pretty amazing. But basically, and that's where like Amazon's money is, right? So their cash flow, it's a cash flow driven company. This is before AWS. So if you can get things to go through your warehouse faster and faster instead of sitting there, you can actually like start to build more cash, right? Because Amazon brings in the inventory, but they don't pay for it for like 30 or 60 or 90 days, depending on what their payment terms are. So the things that he wanted people to do were to come in and to figure out how to make everything keep moving, but at scale, not from like someone rushing around and moving it, but like what were the things that we need to do? Processes, systems and tools, other things. And if you look, this is way back, but the kind of inventory turn rate that Amazon had, like the amount of volume they shipped out of the same square footage, they were able to get more and more every year. Like sometimes 25% more on peak weeks, which was a huge deal because that meant they didn't have to build more warehouse space or things like that. So those were the specific skills that he was looking for like 15, 15, almost 20 years ago.
Excellent. Okay, one last question, guys. She really has to go. Okay, this is you have no more than it's 1:24 right now. This is an excellent question, so I cannot let Stephanie go without answering because I want to know. I want to put her in the spotlight right now. What is your greatest career failure, and how do you decide what program management is the right career path for you? Joey, very greedy. Two questions at once. I like how you roll, Joey Stars.
Two questions at
It's like she
once.
has to
Okay.
go. Let me go ahead and put all my question in.
Well, let's see, my greatest career failure. I have had a lot. Um, but I will say, let's see.
Thank you for making her think, Joey.
I will actually say that I think that I'll give one. I'll pick this one. So when I was at Amazon, I did like a jack of all trades stuff because Lab 126, which was in the Amazon Devices place in the Silicon Valley, was really small. It was about 50 people when I joined, and we were growing. And so at one point, I actually had to run facilities. And
Wow.
and so I ran facilities, I ran IT, I ran networking, I ran business systems, I ran logistics, I ran customer support. Like I did a lot of different things. And during that time, like one of my responsibilities was to find us more space. And I did not know that much about it. There was someone in Amazon corporate who had helped me out a little bit. But I think one of the biggest things for me was really failing to like understand the leadership dynamics around space location and things like that. So I kind of we went through this whole process of looking for space, of trying to evaluate it, of considering it. And we were going to move actually to the place where Lab 126 is now, which is in Sunnyvale, at Moffett Towers. And basically one of the design groups, like the industrial design leader, like didn't want to do it. So I had put in at least 6 months of work into this with like on facility stuff, and went through a huge effort of like bringing leadership on tours, doing these things. And the leadership was like the head of engineering, the head of ops, the head of product that were there. And we got to like the time when we're supposed to sign like your memorandum of understanding or your thing that says we're going to enter into this lease agreement. And the head of engineering was like, I can't do this because the head of industrial design does not want to commute to that location. And it was like super, super disappointing to have put in all that work, but also because it was like kind of public. You know what I mean? It was this thing I was doing with these leaders. Um, and I, after that, came up with some ideas, but like also shortly after that, ended up not running that group anymore. And they ended up swapping out facilities, and I ran something else because it was so like disappointing and hard for me to kind of handle this non-rational reason of around like how we were planning around one particular individual. And I would say like that's I think that's like shareable. That's probably something I'm like shareable is what I'm going for. So how did I decide program management is the right career path for me? Um, I've always been really great about connecting the dots. And I think that is one of the pieces of like connecting the dots, being organized, project management, keeping people on schedule, and also even strategy things like are we measuring the right, are we agreed on what the objective is? Do we know what it is? So program management just was a natural fit for me because it's always been this area um, where I felt like I could connect all those dots and have impact on things that were beyond myself. So that's kind of how I decided on program management and why I currently do it as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for putting her in the in the spot. Let me move me over here. There you go. We are almost on time. You have 2 minutes. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for doing this. Feel free to drop off anytime you want, and I will be in touch. Thank you. Can we get a fist bump?
Awesome. Thanks so much. Fist bump.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, she was amazing. Wow. That was probably one of the best talk. Let me go ahead and remove this, put it back up here. Hang on 1 second, guys. Let me go ahead and remove that. Okay, what other questions do you all have for me before we wrap this up? And the replay, the raw version, will be for member only. Feel free to join anytime that you guys want. One last questions before we go. That is from Mario. Mario says, any tips on keeping outside performance, balancing your time without work and personal life? Basically, Mario's question is work-life balance. Okay? Hang on 1 second. Let me move this here. Well, my friend Mario, if I have that question for you, I would have done it a long time ago. I think, here's the thing. Let me try to reword that. I think that you hear the stories of everything that Stephanie had said. I don't think it's because, the Amazon's culture is working you to death, or I've been there. I know. Like, I'm a mom too. I know. I think it's who we are. there's certain type of personality that mold into each employers and each environment, which is why I love that she mentioned that you need to really do your research and find the right culture and company for you. Because if your intent, if you're looking for a company that are that are extremely innovative, not just innovative, extreme innovative, as in shipping product literally every week, physical product or virtual product or cloud solution every single second, then you know you're going to put in more hours. At the time, you heard it right. She loved it, and I just told you guys I was married to my job the whole 6 7 years I was at Amazon, and I never regretted it once. But because of that experience, you just kind of grow mentally. You can make I'm not saying this to be any negative or putting other employers down. It is an environment that made me realize what my core strength was, what my weaknesses were, even though none of us were confident at the time because we care so much about delivering results to you guys, the consumer, the user. Okay. That's why. So, to answer your questions more directly about how do you create work life balance, at the time, I don't think I want the work life balance. I want to work. I enjoyed it. Mentally, I was so intrigued. I mean, I travel around the world. In return, there's always a pro and a con, right? In return, I was able to travel. So many different continent. I was traveling every 2 weeks. I loved it. I was an international recruiter to international recruiting managers and leader. I was a recruiting program manager. I was an interview trainer. I did all of it. So that's what you're gaining. So the question you got to ask yourself is, rather than saying creating work life balance, ask yourself, what do I want in my personal life, and who, and then map that to who do I want to work for in order to get that. If your goal is work life balance right off the bat in the first year, I can tell you this right now. I don't know anyone that works 8 hours a day at Amazon. I'm not saying this in any negative way, but if you're someone who are easily bored in an environment, even if a company's paying you XYZ amount of dollar, okay? If you're that person, then Amazon is a great fit because with companies like Amazon on your credential, everyone is going to stand in line and wanted to hire you because of the innovation speed, because of your ability to think big, and because of all the different examples of ROI or business impact that you're able to deliver. Okay. Hopefully that is able to answer your question, Mario. And I will remake this video into about 20 minutes for all of you guys next week. Thank you so much for being here. And if you are truly new, oh, sorry guys, I don't know why that just happened. Let's not do that. Okay, let's not do that. I think last week I was having some camera issues, so it's automatically picking up uh, my iMac. So we are definitely cutting that part out. Peace. Be safe. Thank you so much for supporting my work, and I will see you guys on Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Bye.